Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with everybody. Hang on. Okay, so everybody tell me if you can see that photo.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see
Right.
it.
And I'm going to turn it over to Kate now. Take it away, Kate.
Okay. Hi everybody. Can you guys see me or see the photo?
Both.
Both of you.
Cool. It doesn't matter, but I can't see myself anymore, so I wasn't sure if I was showing up or not. But as long as you can hear me, it's all right. I'm Kate Glasletter. I'm located in Southeast Missouri, owner operator of Caney Creek Farm. I got into KuneKune pigs in high school because they were adorable. I'm not gonna lie, that's how they won me over. But definitely the raising them on pasture for pork was a big game changer for our operation, because we had always raised pork here, but it was with the typical like land race, Yorkshire, Hampshire kind of what most people think of when they think of pigs that you raise for pork. And they're just really big, and they can be pretty aggressive and very destructive. And I knew that whenever I got into the operation, I didn't really want to have to deal with that. So I was looking around for all different types of pigs that would be, a little easier to manage and a little easier on the land. And that's how I found KuneKune pigs. But I admit mine aged out. I guess they kind of retired themselves in 2019 was my last litter. So I'm not currently still breeding KuneKune pigs, but from 2012 to 2019, I was actively producing. And we do all our own processing here on the farm for beef, chicken, pork, rabbits, pretty much any kind of protein that we eat, we butcher ourselves. And that was another big winning point for KuneKune pigs. When you're processing them yourselves, sometimes having the biggest animal is not always beneficial. You don't want to throw your back out. And these animals are a lot more user-friendly, really, whenever you're butchering them yourselves. You can flip through pictures if you can go to the next one. Like I said, I didn't mean to send that one. Sorry, that is not a pig. I just went through these today and was trying to find, okay, that's a good one. That shows them on pasture. Okay. I was just trying to find ones that would be kind of appropriate to give you all an idea of what my operation is. So size-wise, that was a big plus in our minds. Now, I understand that now some people are making KuneKune pigs a little bigger, maybe a little faster growth. And honestly, I like the heritage aspect of the slower growing, slower to mature. But if you don't have the resources to feed that pig out that long, I mean, we're talking, until they get, well, I guess it really depends on what size you want them to be for butchering. We like them around like 150, 175. And for our lines, that was about 12 to 15 months. But it worked out for us because we had the pasture, we have the room, and we have the produce to feed them. And if you're raising them just on a dry lot, I'm really not sure. You'd have to put pen to paper and find out for yourself if it's financially wise to raise pork that way. Everyone's operations and goals are different, so you got to figure that out for yourselves. But for us, we have the clover and the pasture and pumpkins. So many pumpkins. That couple pictures back, you could see them with all the pumpkins. That was a huge part of our operation, was getting watermelon, pumpkins, all kinds of fresh produce that people markets weren't utilizing because they waste so much just out in the field. If it's not pretty, they don't sell it. But pigs love it, and that was a big plus for us. These animals grow really well on fresh produce and grass. I caution feeding them like a full grain diet. I know for them to get their vitamins and nutrients, it's required, especially, growing, breeding animals. They need those vitamins and nutrients. That is in a well-balanced pig ration. But they become fat really easily. So I caution, you got to be careful, because you're gonna have a roly-poly obese pig that's nothing but fat if you're not careful. Even alfalfa hay, they can get fat off of. They're easy keepers, which is great, honestly. You save on feed that way. But that's coming to the next subject, the fat content. These are a lard hog. That's what they are. There's no beating around the bush. They're a lard pig. Sometimes that can be off-putting for people. We love the lard. We use it for cooking, soap, all kinds of stuff. You can use that lard. But I know that if you're used to the bacon that you pick off the shelves in, your big stores, the bacon that you get off your KuneKune pig can be kind of, it's not off-putting. It's just different than what most people are used to, because it has a higher fat content. It's still beautiful. It still tastes great, but it's going to have a higher fat content. And it's a flavorful meat. It's a flavorful fat. Some people, though, ran into issues whenever they took their pigs to be processed. The butchers, I cannot stress strongly enough, if you don't want to butcher your animals yourself, and I know that it's limited out there, finding butchers, at least in my location, I don't know for everybody else, but we don't have very many options. There's very few. But some of them have had negative experiences with butchers and their KuneKune pigs, which is really unfortunate, because it's like, why would you want to, I don't know, be disparaging towards the customer and their animal? But there's been situations where the butcher is like, this is too fat, it's not even worth us butchering, or they claim that they couldn't get like pork chops off the pig, or they couldn't get bacon off the pig because it wasn't big enough. I'm just gonna call bull on that, because we've been butchering these pigs for a long time, and believe me, all the same cuts are there. If the butcher really wants to serve you, they'll cater to you. So I guess if you run into that, don't get discouraged. I strongly recommend trying to find somebody else to process your pig, because sounds like maybe they're not the ones to give your money to. Let's see. I'll say, I know that you guys already talked about confirmation, but I will touch on it a little bit. If you're going to start out with breeding animals, I would definitely look at the parent stock. Look at a pig that is a decent size that you're looking for: straight back, straight, even teats, strong pasterns. Makes for a pig that can pack on the pounds better, grow off stronger. And if you want to start small, maybe go somewhere and just get some barrows, get the neutered males, and you can raise them up and process them yourself. If you're not really sure if you'll like the pork, find somebody that is processing their KuneKune pigs and buy some pork from them. Try it. be careful, you'll get hooked, then you'll want some more. But that's what happened to us. It's always good to, dip your toes in first if you, don't want to get you guys overwhelmed with processing your own animals and everything. Let's see. Does anyone have any questions? I don't really have like an outline I was just rambling, but if anyone has any questions, I could talk about processing them, but it's the same for a regular sized hog. It's just a little easier because you're not wrestling with a 300-pound carcass. It's only a 150, 125, or you can do smaller. We for a while there, we had a really good market on like just weaned piglets, the size that you could still fit in like your smoker or your oven. Those were selling pretty good. If you raise them all the way up, that's another thing. Before you dive in, get a feel for the market. Before you have that litter of 12 pigs on the ground and you're like, golly, where's all this pork going? Maybe try to reach out and see if there's a customer base there for that pork. We did a lot of, local, we sold ours on the hoof, live animal on the hoof, mostly. But
could you tell us what that means?
Yeah, so the USDA requires that you be certified to butcher your own animals and sell the pork. And if you don't have that USDA certification, how we got around it is we just sell the animal to them alive. So, we're not, so the animal is
like
alive
skeleton
when they buy the animal. And then, they can take it to their own processor. They can have us process it, but they bought the animal alive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what Joel Salatin talks a lot about, but I just hadn't heard on the hoof. And USDA only needs certification for your pork or your meat in general if it's being sold across state lines, correct? Because I think if we sell just within our state, it is not required to be USDA certified.
So in Missouri, I don't know, but in Missouri, your facilities where you're processing the animal has to be USDA inspected, and you have to have a USDA certification for you to sell any of that meat. Now, we've gotten by with, like, how some places you can't sell raw milk. Well, we sell the jar.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Milk in the jar. Wow, incredible. What? Weird. So, we would sell a box. And what? That box be full of pork. Whoa, that is so weird.
Yeah, it's different in Maine. We do not have to have USDA certification to sell our meat within the state, but across state lines you do.
That's
It
awesome.
depends on where you are. Every state has their own laws.
Yeah.
I wish it were. We do a lot of bartering too. That, like, how we got, truckloads of pumpkins and other stuff. It's like, hey, you want a whole hog? Well, they didn't buy it. They just bartered with pumpkins. But that's cool. I'm glad. I know it's different in each state. So when I speak about that, in Missouri, they're kind of stingy about that.
Hey, it's Kathy here. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's in the picture, what types of pets those are?
Oh gosh. Let me see. It's pretty small, but that looks like we took a pork chop, the little ones, Yeah, so that's like the tenderloin, but you cut it um into sections. I'm not describing it very well. The other one, that's just a ham that instead of having a ham, we cut, oh gosh, those are little, let me see. What is that? Some of that is backbone because my dad really likes backbone with sauerkraut, but a lot of that looks like ham. Sometimes we cure the whole ham, sometimes we just cut it up. That looks like it has a bone in it. We have a big meat saw, so we can just, it depends on what we feel like doing.
So they're like ham steaks.
Yeah, we like roasts, so we'll like slice the hams and they'll make really nice roasts. Or a ham steak, yeah. Or like a stew. That's just the hog split and in the cooler. We rest ours just overnight. You don't age them like you would a beef.
Okay.
I didn't put a lot of meat pictures. I remember you said like, you don't want to have any pictures that would bother anyone, so I didn't put too many like hog butchering pictures because, some of them could bother people. But yeah, that's just some ribs. And what is that called, like a tomahawk steak or something? I'll admit I'm not super up on what all the names of the meat cuts are. I just them, but remembering all the names, there are so many. My cousin actually is he's a butcher behind the counter in Snooks, and he knows all of them, and he just drools. He comes to help us, and he drools over all the beautiful. I'm like, that's cool, man. Yeah, this is how I cook it, and it tastes really good. That looks like a ham and something else. I can't really make out the picture. Oh, that's a little better. Let's see. Yeah, those are a bunch of just steaks. Like the one in the center, that's the part that would make up the tenderloin. I can't make out the ones on the side. That looks like a bit of pork belly that we just cut. I did put some pictures of just the raw pork belly in there, didn't I? I thought. Oh, that's the whole meat cooler. Yeah, we rest the pork overnight. Okay, so yeah, that in the back, that's the back right there. The long thing in the back. That's like the long tenderloin. It's kind of hard to picture if you're not familiar with animal anatomy. Once you do it a couple times, you get really familiar with like what part and you can see it on the live animal too, which is kind of morbid now that I think about it, but yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so that's some pork belly, raw, which is bacon. That's some raw bacon right there. Green bacon on both sides. I know I wanted to show that just to show that, it does exist. And it's good. Yeah, there you go. That's the tenderloin, that whole thing. You can kind of see the backbone right there. And I was showing the fat too. There's not people. And I guess if lard is useless to you, then yeah, having a lard breed, probably not probably not what you should look into. But yeah, so it looks like we kept the shoulders and the hams, and then we have the backbone and the ribs connected to the green pork belly with that fat layer is still on there, so you can't see the pork belly. That would get trimmed off. There you go. There's some steaks. We
Leah, I
just
have a question for you. Oh, I'm sorry.
what's up?
So for somebody who hasn't marketed pork, heritage KuneKune pork before, how would you recommend starting? Like where, Facebook, where would you look to reach out?
So, I mean, there are so many social media platforms now.
Mhm.
I guess whichever ones you're most comfortable with and you feel like you have, you know, the most outreach on. I really started Facebook was like the main thing. And, I started my farm page and it started out with just lots of pictures of pigs and sharing my, daily operations and
Mhm.
all the little piglets and sharing, processing them. And that's kind of, and look too, I would go to like some farmers markets
Mhm.
and as a customer of the farmers market, not like I'm gonna start a stand, you know. And I met a lot of people that I was already, I've been here. My family has been here since 1864, so we know a lot around. So I would run and be like, "Yeah, no, I'm raising my own," and they're like, "Oh, I would really like to try that. Just see what, it's all about." And that's how I got quite a few of them. There's a picture of lard, curing. Also like heritage groups, or not the heritage, like the homesteading, self-sufficient, raise your own. You can definitely find even the health conscious, like people really like the idea of knowing where their food came from. So if you can find those groups and find those kinds of people, they were the ones that were really, first they'd try it, then they'd want to come and help butcher. That usually only happens once because then they realize that we put them to work and they're like, a lot of work. And then they buying pigs themselves because they're like, we want to do this ourselves too. So
That's super helpful. Thank you. My other question is people asking, or what would you say to somebody that says, why would we buy this over just our cheap grocery store product?
I mean, honestly, with prices now,
The door to the lunch.
I have not bought I have not bought meat in a long time, but I hear that it is really expensive. So I don't even know if going to a grocery store saves them all that much money. I don't know. I'm not up on the prices, but really, I think the taste is it speaks for itself. Like I have friends and family that don't raise their own meat, so you spend time with them and then you eat, you know, regular meat and you're like, my God, what is this crap? But it's kind of like they got to be willing to try it and try it if they're not even willing to try it. Flavor, the color. Oh my gosh, we bought what happened? My neighbor had a windfall of pork from just your typical pork. And he was like, "Can I store some in your freezer?" And we had freezer space. So we're like, "Sure, bring some over. We'll store some for you." And he brought it over. And we were like, "My God, what is this pale, pasty stuff?" We're so used to like the fresh KuneKune pork. It's not the other white meat. It is red. It is rich. So just like comparison, it's like, wow. Woo.
And it's a lot healthier for you. It has more vitamins and nutrition because they are raised more sustainably.
Yeah, a lot of omega, what is it? They tell me this all the time. A lot of omega-3s
And
as it's
six.
animals.
Yeah, omega-3 and 6, that's very high end. And
Yeah.
salmon, which I listed it out, what it's supposed to help. support.
Yeah.
In the articles that I wrote.
Yeah, and you can, some people, especially seems like nowadays, they really want to know how their animal was raised. You know, so you can play that card. Like, fine, if you want to eat the ones that are raised in those conditions, go ahead. You know, if you want to eat an animal that got belly scratches and sprayed down with the hose on hot summer days and, didn't worry about nothing until he got his final snack, maybe look at, pork not mass produced.
Consumers are really seem to be concerned with how the pigs are raised. That is one of your biggest selling points for KuneKune pork, along with the fact that it is a rich, flavorful meat. So finding those customers that care that the pig got to live the life of a pig, not in confinement or farrowing crates, that it was loved and taken care of until that one bad day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's your market for KuneKune pork. And it's
Thank
getting
you.
more and more popular with chefs. It's being recognized more and more all the time.
Yeah, we actually have a local chef in our nearest city, which isn't saying much. It's not just Cape Girardeau, not a big city, but he has 2 restaurants, and there was several times that he's from Italy, but he fell in love with the Cape Girardeau girl and moved here and opened restaurants here. But anyways, we've become really good friends with him, and he has just gone crazy about the KuneKune pork. He couldn't get enough of it whenever we were really producing it. He was a big fan of it.
And
Yeah.
some of those fork to table restaurants, they're really gonna enjoy the KuneKune pork as well.
I have
Yeah.
quite a few questions, but one that's pertinent to what you guys are discussing right now. I've reached out to a ton of butchers and chefs and charcuterie people and just like a whole battery. And I guess he's like the top charcuterie person right now in Maine. He was recommended by 3 different people, a butcher and 2 farmers. And when I talked to him, he said, I don't think we can do the KuneKune because they are much smaller than the Mangalitsa. I don't know how to pronounce it. Mangalitsa.
Holy pig.
Yep. It just produces like twice the size of animal, and it's the same. In his mind, it was in the same category as KuneKune, like a hairy pig that's a fatty pig, that's a pasture-raised pig, a heritage breed, that kind of. So it fit his same category as KuneKune. And he said he went through all the cuts that he could do. I was writing them down. A lot of them were Italian names, and how many pounds per cut he could get on a Kune versus the Mangalitsa. And he said basically it wouldn't pay him because it'd be the same amount of hours of work for like a half to a third of the amount of meat. So I was really discouraged at that moment, thinking, okay, so he's like the top of the line charcuterie guy, so maybe this is not my market to hit. Maybe I'll hit those local chefs instead and try those one-off people up and down the Maine coast when that time comes. But it was down to price.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate truth is, there are other heritage breeds out there that, are very flavorful too. I've never had that kind, but I know I am friends with breeders of them, and yeah, they're an awesome pig too. If that pig is already filling that niche before you got there, yeah, I don't know. See, in my area, there there's hardly anyone is raising their own pigs at all, period. It's mostly row crop. They, back in the day, whenever there was, more homesteads around here, pretty much everybody raised a hog or two. But now it's really hard to find anyone. So there was a little more of an opening for that. But yeah, that is unfortunate. It is understandable though. I mean, he would know down to the pound of what his time is worth, what that pound costs. So that
I think in that case, for us, I was like, okay, maybe this may be the path that I would take. And that's just one person. There are other people that could fit that bill. And I have a lot of really great leads aside from him, but I was kind of excited about that initially. I think a better path for us to take, and you can definitely stop me if you think that's not the right way to go, but is eventually, and we don't have on-farm sales at the moment, but doing an on-farm sales thing, because again, in the state of Maine, the requirements are different when you're selling on your property, and your label explains that, has your information, your address, your name, and the product that's in it. You do not have to have the same level of inspection as you would if I drove it a mile down the road and sold it in a store, which I'm also interested in doing. But I'm wondering if we could just eventually develop, if we financially could develop a sausage, a product, a few cuts that would be unique to our farm, special to our farm, use our herbs that we grow in a mix, and kind of make our own niche product rather than try to find a charcuterie person to buy into it, but just create it where we are and market it over the years.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely won't hear me say that's a bad idea. Again, I don't know I don't know your personal, I don't know your location. If you're way far out in the middle of nowhere, that might impact getting customers your place, if that makes sense. But as far as doing it yourself, I'm not going to tell you no. That I think the big thing is, like, if you have the room to raise them, because they take a long time, to get to a decent, depending on what you consider a decent size, it can take a year, so if you don't have the space or the a way to feed them that won't break the bank,
Right.
Have to factor that in. But yeah, making your own sausage is really not that hard. uh and using your own stuff, that sounds awesome. We I mean, we like the basic, pepper breakfast but they make like a really great maple mix.
Oh, that is so wonderful.
It is so good, and we add that with some spicy mix. Anyways, yeah, sausage is easy make, so that would be. But beyond that, some cured hams. If you got the space to hang up some cured hams, it's really not that difficult. I recommend finding someone that can be like a mentor, that's close by, knows what they're. That mentorship can be really important. I kind of take it for granted because, like I said, we've been doing this since 1864. YouTube is great. YouTube has everything. It's crazy. But as far as that being like a business idea, I don't know your financial situation, but I'm not going to tell you it's a bad idea. I know several people that have started, and then they end up just producing it themselves and selling it, from a little stand by their farm, on location. It works.
I used to love the smoked meat. That was always my favorite. I had a USDA processor who smoked for USDA as well, with license, which is kind of hard to find, but that's smoked meat. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
we
good.
we build we only smoke every like 2 years or so, because our smoker, we kind of, it's in pieces. It's really old. It's not a fancy Anyways, the meat is great. Yes, I agree. Smoked that smoked sausage is hard to beat. All I can say, careful, because you can over smoke your bacon really easily. Be careful. that pork belly can take on. We learned that the hard way. And you still eat it because it's yours, but you can over.
Hey, Kate,
Did you manage your pastures, Kate?
Oh, pastures. Yeah, wait. Some people said that they had other mini questions.
Oh,
Do
I'm
we
sorry.
Would it be better to go on with pastures, or should I just answer everybody's questions?
Answer.
Okay.
I don't think Karen had a question. I'll wait to ask my most important one.
Oh boy.
well, thanks. We raise boar goats, and the baby goats, when they're ready to sell, we post it on Craigslist, and boy, they sell quick. And I'm hoping that these pigs will sell the same way.
After they sell the pigs.
Yeah, what kind of prices you're able to get for young pigs?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, let me start by saying I haven't had to sell a pig since 2019. Okay. So I know that things have changed.
Yeah,
Um,
that's understood. That's for sure.
uh,
We sell them live right off the farm, just like you do,
oh,
for pretty much the same reason. Um, and we have USDA butchers are so backed up that you almost have to get a whole year in advance to get on their schedule.
yes. Yep. 16 months in some cases. Yeah, it's crazy. I've never been so more glad that we just do it ourselves because it's been nuts. But anyways, okay, so let's see. If I was selling registered KuneKune piglets for breeding stock, at the end I was getting anywhere from 1,000 to 800 per pig. I did not ship them because I got tired of doing that. Hoorah for you who do that. I flew mine a couple times to all over the place, and I just got tired of it. So they had to come and get them. But that's what I was getting at the end. For breeding stock, weaning age. Now, if they was just barrows, it depends. Like if they got to a certain size, like I'd had them for a while, and they were getting up to like 175, 150, 175, I would start going by the pound, and I would look at what, the average hog was selling per pound, and then I'd add a couple dollars to it. And that's how I would sell them. I don't know, that would change depending on the hog market. So I would call I'd call the local sale barn, and I'd be like, yeah, what are you getting per pound for your
I understand. I understand that. I mean, we kind of watch the market and all around, but I said it's so like these goats. It's amazing how all the immigrants want goat. It's the most eaten meat in the world, except for here in the United States. But we're just getting into the coonies. We love the pigs. We have a sow or a barrel. We're going to have our first batch Memorial Day weekend, and we're going to have the start of this whole mess.
Well, good for you. I wish you luck. Just remember, it's usually 3 a.m. 3 inches of rain. What is that? There's always the most least opportune moment. As soon as you leave the farm to go to grocery store, that's when you'll have them.
We've been a dairy farm here for 200 years, and
No,
yeah, we've gotten down to goats. We're not milking goats, but we've had animals here for forever.
Yeah. Oh boy, yeah, you know all about that. Yeah. But yeah, for pricing, That was back in 2019. That was what I was getting.
Now, Kate, you said that you did a lot of little roasters. What would you sell those for?
I I knew someone was going to ask me that, and I was trying to remember.
Leave it to me.
Oh man. I know at one
You'd
point,
have to search the local market.
well, I was about to say, I know at one point I was like looking, what's the average, oven sized pig go for? Because I know you can buy those, and then I would always tack on, a little bit extra for my, but I honestly can't remember what they were really popular around 4th of July. So it was like when I knew that, or Memorial Weekend, those warmer weather. So when I knew that was coming up, I'd figure out, okay, what's a decent asking price, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's a really smart way to do it, though, is look at your market in that moment, because we're very different from Kate and Frank and probably some others. Is that this is our 5th farming season and we started from scratch. We are, far removed now. My grandfather was the last farmer in my family, same with my husband. So we're starting it for our kids. And that's been successful with our flower farm, which we're now at a 6-figure wedding flower farm in 4 seasons of weddings. So we work our butts off trying to get the market nailed, which we're doing with weddings. So I'm really hoping we can do that with the Kunees in this area too. And that's how we do it for marketing. We look at the market, what is stuff selling for this week, because it changes weekly for flower.
Yeah.
And
Changes
then
all.
we tack on a little extra, like you said, just tack on a little extra because our growing methods are all natural. We have never sprayed pesticides, herbicides, fungicides in the whole 5 years that we've been here. So that's expensive to do management versus nasty chemicals. It's management and organic certified amendments. And this year we
My figures are going to be outdated because I haven't been in that part of it 2019. So
that brings me to my most important question. I'm really hoping to hear from you on this, the antibiotics question. So what did you find that you had to use, if anything, and how did that affect the pasture management and the meat? Because that's a big issue here. Just the vaccines our pigs have gotten so far, I don't think their poop, their waste is broken down the way it should be on our land. I'm already noticing that after 2 seasons, because the typical microbial activity that should be there is not touching it. And I think it's the deworming, so I have some plans for the deworming, but to be natural, but I don't know about the other things that are vaccines. Because it goes through the waste and it stays there on the land and it's being treated as something foreign by nature. So that's frustrating.
So okay. As far as like antibiotics go, I'm trying to think. I know I have them upstairs in my room of all things farm related, but I know like penicillin, I know I used that. I'm trying to think of illnesses. I had a sow get mastitis once, or almost get mastitis. And I had a sow get a cough one winter, and I'm trying to think what we gave her for that. LA 200 is one that we keep on hand. I can tell you that it's definitely not like the first thing that we reached for. It wasn't like, oh man, that pig looks a little limp, let's slap him. But it's definitely something I keep on hand, because I get it. want to be all natural, but I don't want to see them suffer either. I mean, if I know that I can help them, I'm gonna give them something that I know can help them.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's okay. I don't need you to be so specific. I guess my general question is that will come up. That's why that's another marketing piece, a huge marketing piece for us is by, like Kathy had brought this up to us too, minimal use of antibiotics, minimum, it's very different from a feedlot animal. So
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
because I mean, making making monster germs is a real thing.
yeah,
And it's scary. So yes, I definitely recommend, like I said. But as far as your customers being worried about it, I always tried to stress, any animal that was treated was, we follow the withdrawal rules to the T. So there's no, I know people still believe that it doesn't make a difference, but if you are going to believe what the people say that they made the medicine, then you believe the withdrawal, and we do. So whatever it might be, like 30 days before butchering or whatever, we ensure that there's no animal processed within that period. And honestly, I can't think of a meat animal that we ever had to treat for anything. It was mostly like our breeding animals. Like one of them got a cough. I guess what I'm saying is we didn't have to use them very much. And our meat animals, I think the biggest thing was like preventative care, honestly. Don't crowd them, don't make them be cold and wet. Rotation, that plays a big role in your dewormer. And I believe, for what it's worth, that plays a big role in why their poop doesn't break down. That dewormer, like it will kill most anything to break down the poop. But nowadays they make some pretty effective natural dewormers out there. I'm not sure how cost effective they are, but like my aunt was an all natural Nigerian dwarf goat milk producer, and she had a dewormer. I'm trying to think of the name. Of course, we're in Southeast Missouri, so it could be totally different in Maine. But it was all natural. You could certify, and it worked really good. It had a lot of natural like roots, and the ingredient list was all cool herbs and stuff. And
yeah,
huh?
I found a recipe. I just don't know how to test it because like nobody knows about this stuff.
So, if it's effective,
No, if it's safe for the pigs and actually going to work. Like I know people who use it, but I don't know if the individual components are safe. But that's like another conversation.
yeah.
Um,
Well, she would send her fecal samples off, and I recommend doing this. Whatever you use, get some stool samples tested. See what you have. You might not have a bad parasite load, anyways. You might only have one thing that you need to treat for. Don't just be willy-nilly giving them stuff because it's the next 6 month rotation, and you're thinking, oh, I might as well. So yeah, those stool sample, getting those tested. But again, I know people get real paranoid about that, and I guess I'm not the best to be answering the question, because I'm like, a lot of them, I feel like they don't even understand what kind of stuff really goes into taking care of animals. And sometimes, you gotta use the tools provided, and some of them have chemicals in them, like the whole world.
You talked about, I mean, if somebody else wants to jump in, go for it. But I wrote a couple other questions down about your management, and I would love more detail. So it would really help us to plan. So stop me if that's not okay, anybody. The percentage of that produce, not grass, but that produce that you were using, like veg, all those great pumpkins and watermelon, and how much of the year you were able to do that, because we can grow that stuff on our farm, but it's hard to hold since Maine's growing season is Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Very short.
Very
Um,
short.
yeah, we are fortunate. Like I said, the way that we did things, I know will not work for everybody. Because in Southeast Missouri, we're fortunate to have a very long growing season. And where I'm located, I am not too terribly far away from large produce growers. And they happen to be really nice people. And they like pork and beef, chicken. And I mean, there was, whenever I was in the thick of it, there was a time where I was providing all their meat because they were providing all the veg and all the produce. I mean, it is painful and disgusting how much gets thrown away.
Yeah.
I don't know how they keep from going under with how much is thrown away. But anyways, so pumpkins, golly, that was good from, he would let me from Halloween all the way through until it froze and thawed. So our first really hard, solid freeze, I mean, golly, that could be, that could be late January sometimes with how the climate's been going. It's, but once that hard freeze and thaw, the ones out in the field collapse. They turn into mush. But before that, we would go out in the field way after October, way after Halloween, and pick us up. It was labor intensive, not gonna lie. Labor intensive. It was a good kind of labor though, like you felt accomplished. But the biggest windfall is they have massive Halloween displays. And they need those gone right away so they can get ready for Christmas. So he's like, all right, Halloween is done. Come get them. And we'd be there that day. Like work, school, didn't matter. You're getting all your trailers, you're getting all your trucks, and you are hauling as many pumpkins as you can fit safely. And then we would store them. Storing is important in our hay barn. And we even cover them in straw and hay, and that preserves them if you can keep the piglets from eating them. There was a couple of years I had litters later than I like, or was it earlier than I like? It doesn't matter. It was still cold and we still had pumpkins on the ground, and those little rats, piglets, not rats, I couldn't figure out what was eating giant holes in my pumpkins. Turns out it was the piglets. I was like, I have an infestation. Piglets. But rodents, no joke, rodents can be a problem. They'll eat they'll eat them hollow. But that's how we stored them.
Did you feed them? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you feed them frozen? I was trying to figure that out.
Oh man, once they freeze, I take an axe and I chop them up. And sometimes, like I said, in the barn, it had to be really cold for them to freeze in the barn because they're insulated, they're in a shed, they're covered up. But we would always take like several crates and just right out there in the lot where they spend their winters. And I don't know if every pig is self-regulating, but they would not eat every single, these are way too many pumpkins for them to eat every single one. So that one picture where they're all standing there eating, like we dumped several big pallets full, and they literally just come and eat as they need to, as like a supplemental thing, because that's not their sole food. Because
what else at that time of year in the winter would you feed them? Because I'm assuming we're going to be growing out meat pigs in the winter months when there's no pasture and there's snow on the ground. So I'm trying to minimize grain.
So we always, it's some kind of, and I mean, I'm sure the brands change where you're at, but it was always some kind of ration, balanced ration to, because they need things like lysine and, pumpkins and watermelons and that. Actually, I think watermelons might have a little bit of anyways, they need, they're omnivores. So that balanced ration, we have a local mill, and we would have ours made tailored to what what we would need, and we would have our piglet ration, like a milk pellet, like a starter ration. We would have that milled, made by our local mill. So this picture, they're not eating
I just
pumpkin.
talked to a mill today, Main Grains, which is our big local mill, and it's so unaffordable for us. It's $120 for a 50-pound bag of wheat. And my husband's like, oh, we were talking about geese at that moment, so I'm not sure if we would do wheat for the pigs. But the point is, their prices, they do organic and they source all naturally from the state of Maine. Their prices price us out of using a good
Wow.
mill, a good local mill. So it's awesome what you did, and I'm freaking dumbfounded. Like, that is the goal. But I think it's not doable in this state without family connections. And I want to find a way to figure it out.
Yeah, this was just it's just a normal Purina mill. So it's not organic. We are not organic.
Yeah.
The pumpkins were not grown organically. The ration, not organic. It's just a normal Purina mill. But what helped us with the mill is you could buy it in bulk, so instead of having to go to your farm store, I don't know what they have in Maine, but over here we have Tractor Supply and stuff like that. Those are the farm stores.
Yeah, we get those too. Our like the Kent Nutrition Group is who I called because one of Kathy's favorite foods is made by them. And I talked with the TSM, which is like the whatever regional manager who knows this entire Northeast region. And she's like, we can create anything for you, but it's a 3-ton minimum. And I want to see you going through 3 tons in 6 weeks or less. And I laughed. I'm like, okay, well, we have a herd of 6, so that's not possible. But maybe we can make our own. That may be just another conversation for another time, but you can hear that the cost and the quality of what the diet is the biggest piece for us in pumping out any meat animals. It's that cost and that really high quality nutrient piece.
Wow, man, 3 tons.
3-ton minimum for them to create your own feed. And I have a local, like the Milk House is our local organic certified raw milk place that we go to, which by the way, we pay $9.75 a gallon for that milk. So I'm thinking of a cow because then we can use that waste, the extra milk in the whey and stuff from cheese making for the pigs as well.
Yeah, whey, super nutritional. I mean, and even, we are a small family, so she would give us whey we would need, and where did it go? It went, back to the pigs. It was super helpful.
Yeah.
The milk cow. Yeah, they got spoiled on it. They would know whenever I would call her up, the pigs would come, and I have a picture of them. Their little noses are in the gate and they're watching me milk because they're salivating, oh yes, we're gonna get some milk. But wow, yeah, I'll say it again. The way I did things, I know will not work for everybody because our location, our growing year, our growing season, and then our bartering system, the produce for the pork, it just really we had a local dairy. Unfortunately, they closed down, but we would barter pork and pumpkins. We would get pumpkins out of the field from the pumpkin producer, and then we would give them to, they like to bake them and eat them. So we'd give them the pumpkins, and they would give us milk for our pigs. That was before I had my own cow. Anyways, I guess, yes, connections make a huge difference. Watermelons. Okay, so watermelons were from like July until they froze. The same thing. We were picking up things in the field until they froze. I remember using shovels to pick all the flattened watermelons and pumpkins up and putting them in 50-gallon drums so we could roll them off the trailer and just give them to the pigs. We left tubs, like protein tubs, there at the, because they had a fresh produce stand, and anything that had a blemish or anything that was starting to turn, they would just throw away. So they would throw it in the tubs, and then like sometimes it was 3 times a week I'd come, and there cantaloupe and peaches and all kinds of berries. And yeah, so that's how we got. We also grow a big garden we grow a lot of sweet corn. So we, harvest that, and all of that waste goes to them. For a while, there's several seasons, we had a really good thing with some local Mennonites. They grew tons of sweet potatoes, which are not the same as normal potatoes, and they are actually safe to eat raw. And we got boatloads, literally boatloads of sweet potatoes for these pigs, and they store really well. And we would chop them up and mix them in. But all in all, I was still, when the pastures aren't producing, and I would have to break down the nutrients of a pumpkin, but pigs can't just survive on that. So they were getting, it wasn't much because they were filling up on other produce, but they were still getting some kind of balanced pork ration.
Thanks.
How many pigs did you run?
Oh boy. I think at the max we had like at one time we had 5 sows producing, 2 breeding boars, and then a zillion. It was a lot, because for a while there I was doing 2 litters a year per sow, and that really adds up. But then I didn't like it, just wears your sows down a lot, and I didn't like it, and I felt like I was having to feed them so much more for them to maintain condition. I went to just 1 litter a year after several years, and they were getting older too, so it breaks down a sow a lot faster when she's got to do it 2 a year, in my opinion. But I think like oh man, that's a tough question.
Now, do you have wild hogs out there yet too?
Oh man, fortunately not. I don't know how anyone does this if they have feral hogs, because those things are terrible. The county I work in is devastated by them. They'll kill domestic hogs, and they'll bust through any fence to get to your sows and kill your boars, and it's devastating. I don't know how. And they spread so many diseases. Oh, hey, sorry, that reminds me of your question about vaccines or immunization. Say that word. She had a question about that. I kept a closed herd just as soon as I could, and that kind of, I know some people might disagree with me, but I have a closed herd. I'm not going to stick them full of all the vaccines because it's closed herd and they're not being introduced to anything. Now, if you don't have a closed herd, if you're like borrowing a boar from somewhere else, if you're leasing your boar, then yeah, they can be introduced to certain, and I don't know, every operation is different. If you have a known virus in your soils that will hurt your pigs, then yes, in that instance, vaccinate for that. We fortunately did not have any kind of pig related local illnesses that we needed to maintain a vaccination schedule for. So I closed my herd just as soon as I could and kept it closed and didn't have any sort of virus issues. If that.
Yeah, that helps a lot. I'm still trying to get a handle on our amount of pasture space for the amount of pigs that we have. Do you have any input on that?
Oh man, there are so many factors like your soil type, your forage type, your growing season. I mean, we have a silty clay loam. It's well draining, a lot of slope, sometimes up to 15%. But we could keep a decent trio with their litters on an acre, split in two, and we would rotate. Rotation is I'm a firm believer in rotation. We have a rotational grazing system for our grass-fed beef, and it is essential, I feel.
How frequently do you move your pigs? Like, I know Salatin moves his cows every day, but how about pigs?
Well, again, I mean, that depends on the number of pigs, your size of paddock, your growing, where you're at in your growing season. Like in the spring, our forage is growing really, really fast. So we can, it bounces back really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So keep it in that vegetative state, we would move them more frequently. So they're, keeping up with the pasture. And sometimes they still wouldn't. And they don't like it when the grass gets too tall.
So maybe that's a better question for you. At what inch of grass would you say that's ready to regraze? Because that's something we can all look for.
Okay, so the big key here is you got to think of grass or any vegetation as the leaf is the solar panel. And the more solar panel you take away, the less power that root and that living organism is getting. So you never, and I know this can be tough, but if you're taking more than half, I mean, that plant is going to take longer to recover. So depending on your forage type, fescue can take a little more abuse, especially if it's endophyte fescue. If it's an endophyte free, then it's a little softer. But you definitely want to be careful that you don't graze it. You need to leave at least half. With our native worm season, it's even more. We don't take that more than 8 inches from the ground. Once you get past that 8-inch mark, you are harming that plant. So it depends on, if you're, orchard grass, Timothy. I'm trying to think of, you're a little cooler over there.
Yeah, you named some of them. We have Timothy, orchard grass. I'm not so great with that yet because we've never pastured animals, but a lot of our farmer friends do. So I keep asking. And we had a cattle guy who raises Highlands up in Unity, Maine, come by, and he said, "Yeah, I see orchard grass, Timothy." Previous people had planted to hay it, so they just stole the nutrients for years and years, maybe decades. I don't know. And that was another question I was going to ask you. What would you recommend planting, since we have time to do that, for a rotational grazing system specifically for meat? Because we'll graze our breeding animals no matter what, but what worked for you for meat?
Okay, so clover is really good. They love clover. Clover's really good. Orchard and Timothy are good too. They like the broadleaf, so if you could throw in, seed is crazy. And fertilizers, it's better, but it's still crazy. Alfalfa, really good. I know it eats a lot up, fertilizer wise. But let me see. They love weeds. I can't get over how they eat lamb's quarter.
Yeah, we have a lot of lamb's quarters.
Past height. They don't like it once it gets too mature. But I watched walk through and just nip off all the lamb's quarter, and I was like, "You gotta be crazy!" And they even ate spiny amaranth, the pigweed. They were eating that when it was.
It's supposedly toxic. I've done a lot of research on this because we have that pigweed,
Yeah, yeah.
but we grow amaranth as a flower farm and they love that, and it does not fall into the same category, even though it's the same like species or genre. I have to look at it. So is
I've
that true?
one from it. I mean, I'm not saying that I feed it like in a solid pasture at all. But I've seen them nip off weeds that I would have never thought that they eat. And I'm like, wow, you're kind of like a goat, here you are eating the weeds. But let's see. I know some, they grew Sudan, sorghum.
Okay.
Sudan with that one though, because it can become toxic under stress.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so like drought, extreme frost. It starts making a toxin that can be dangerous.
Well, that's
But
a no for Maine then.
well, I mean, if you're only growing it in, they usually treat it. It's not a, how do I want to say this? It's not a permanent pasture. It's kind of like you're redoing your pasture, worked up. Let's throw down some of this annual forage, and then they'd come in later and actually sow in. I guess what I'm saying, it's not a permanent forage. It's an annual kind. It's treated like
Yeah.
an annual. Here, anyways, it's treated like an annual. So by time it frosts, it's already been cut. It's already out of the equation. So it's not been an issue, but it is toxic. Yeah, under stress.
Do you know if pigs will eat mullein and artemisia like wormwood? I'm assuming that's something used in natural dewormers, but like, have you had any experience with those medicinal plants that are all over these landscapes?
I'm not sure. I don't know. You'd have to show me a picture. I'm
Okay.
not with that one.
I'm gonna do a little research this season and get back to everybody on it, and that's what's on my list.
But I will say, I'm pretty sure that all natural dewormer that my aunt was using, it had wormwood in it.
Yes.
Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
but that plant, I am not familiar with that plant, so I can't give you a yes or no. I do know that I was surprised with how many weeds they picked up, especially whenever the weeds are, young. Once they get that certain stage, of course, nobody likes them. But
And did you forest your pigs at all? Can we use the forest areas?
oh yeah, acorns, they're big fans of acorns. We have we're fortunate to have pretty stable oaks. So I'd say just be cautious because that root can be fragile. You don't want it to be stomped down and compacted. So
Oh, no, we do. We want those pigs to decimate our disgusting forests that have been overgrown for 80 years. Our neighbor said our land was a sledding hill when he was a kid, and he's like almost 90. And now it's just all saplings, pines, unfortunately hawthorns, which a hawthorn, if you don't know it, it can have a 3 to 4 inch long needle, maybe longer, and it will puncture a tractor tire. So I'm really concerned about putting the pigs into our forest because we have hawthorns throughout, which are valuable trees, but I'm concerned about the pigs getting stabbed.
that sounds like our black locusts. They get our black locusts get real bad thorns, and if you cut them off, the stumps just come back like thorny clubs. But as far as grazing or clearing land, they are really good at it, especially concentrations. They're really good at it. Your briar bushes, they will keep those down. But yeah, if you want to, if you have forests that you want to maintain healthy, I recommend just grazing them when the acorns are falling. And for the rest of the year, keep them out of there so they're not disturbing the rootstock. But if you want to kill everything, yeah, man, concentrate those pigs. They are really good at it.
And we don't have acorns, sadly. We have almost no oak. We just have a ton of eastern white pine. So they'll have more vitamin C than it could ever want.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much they eat off of those pine needles.
We'll find out.
Yeah, they'll try. They try most anything.
Thank you for answering so many of my questions. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm not sure if I answered the other. I got distracted with that vaccine closed herd. I'm a big, like, my flocks are all closed. My cattle herd is all closed. I'm a big believer in just keeping everything out and quarantine. You know, if you got to bring something in, you know, quarantine for sure. But does anybody else have any questions? I don't know if I have covered everyone's concerns or clarification.
Does
Thank you
anybody
very
else,
much.
does anybody else have questions? Y'all are being very quiet tonight.
Oh, I can ask more, Kathy. I'm here.
Oh, I know you are, Jennifer.
Questions, because I didn't really have any. I wasn't too prepared for this. I was kind of whenever she asked me, I was like, wow, I'm sure I'll talk. I mean, I love to talk about pigs. I'll talk.
Well, we greatly appreciate you doing this for us, Kate.
I'm glad this is a good idea. I like this.
We
But
do this every month, and every month we have a different topic, and it's kind of neat that, you know, everybody gets to see each other face to face and kind of get to know, you know, the different breeders that are within the organization. I'm sorry we had a small turnout tonight.
I don't know any different.
I have one more really important question for Kate.
Go for it.
It's my butcher. I have an awesome butcher who comes to our farm and we work together, and he's totally willing to learn how to butcher a Kune, but he doesn't have like finished cuts. So if he has questions for you, since he said he really doesn't know what to do differently than like a feedlot pig, would he be able to talk with you about it?
Sure, but I mean, we don't really butcher ours different from, well, I mean, I don't know. We've always just butchered our own, so I guess that's not a fair to say that we've do it just like all the others. But
Well, maybe
I mean,
he'll figure it out and it won't be as hard as he thinks it might be.
everything's there. It's just smaller. And it has more fat. Okay, let me back up. Everything's there. But sometimes, especially if the pig is really fat, it can be hard to find it. Not gonna lie. We butchered a sow once, and my God, it was like we were lost in the pig because there was so much fat. But we process the same, you know, the hams, a roast, backbone. You know, Dad likes his backbone with sauerkraut. We keep everything. We make our own head cheese. We make our own blood sausage. Unfortunately, we make our own liver sausage. So
That's amazing. I just have to thank you so much. I know Kathy just thanked you, but I don't know anybody else who does that anymore. And it is rare, and you're amazing. My grandfather would have had a blast.
I tell you, we literally just kept doing it so we wouldn't forget how. That's really, and every time we do it, I'm like, God, why are we still doing this? Because it's so much work. But I'm like, you know, you got to remember to do this stuff.
Do you teach it? Because you should. And I would take that class. I would come over to your farm and learn.
You know, I tell you, whenever I was really into this, and I've created several albums and several posts, not a lot of videos, mostly because somebody would have to hold the camera and my hands are full. But someone was like, you need to get a GoPro. But for a while there, I had people that were local, you know. Well, even then, I had one girl, she traveled, you know, over 2 hours just to come and participate. And we're always we're always happy for the help because it's a lot of work. Some people are like, that sounds like fun, and they show up one time and then they're like, all right, yeah, I'm out. That's not as much as I thought. I was like, no, we work. It's not just fun and games. But I'm happy to answer questions. I'll admit, you know, better at showing people than like pointing at a picture. It's kind of tough for me to connect what I'm seeing to what I did.
All I can say is please develop a class because I know a whole bunch of people who would come and do it. There aren't many people that do that
You
in the
can find,
world.
bet you any money, you can find it on YouTube. They got all kinds of stuff on
No
YouTube.
way, not that, not head cheese and sausage from start to finish. There's no way. I bet you $1,000 nobody has done that. Nobody, and you should.
Blood sausage, they're gonna get reported because that no one should do that. It's not. It's a type of torture. Yeah, that.
Anybody else have any other questions or anything? I hate to hold her up much longer.
Oh, you did ask about pasture development, which
Well,
we
you
kind of.
answered- yeah, you answered really well.
Yeah, ours is primarily clover, orchard grass, timothy, and fescue because we can't get rid of fescue, and it's everywhere. And we use to divide our pastures for rotational grazing. So that's our fencing of choice.
Did you say electric fencing? I missed it.
Yeah, poly tape. It's electrified poly. It's not the rope, it's the thin wide. I like the wide kind because they can see it better. But my perimeter fence is all wire field fence. But again, this depends a lot on location and soil type. And I would talk to your local extension. I'm sure, does every state have extension offices? I don't even know.
Yeah, we have a good one, but they don't know coonies.
Yeah, but I mean, just for like what forages would grow good on like your soil types.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might help out.
A lot of states will allow you to bring in soil samples for free and they'll analyze your pastures for you.
Cool.
We did that.
Are they free?
Yes,
That's amazing.
Ours was free in Virginia.
Wow, ours is like up to $20. No, that's for serious though. That's super important. I'm a strong believer in soil tests. Get your soil tests. Don't just fertilize willy-nilly. I know it can be expensive or free if you're lucky, but it's worth it for sure. You want to make sure you're not just spreading stuff that you don't need. Anyways, I hope I touched on everything you was expecting.
Hey, you've done a fabulous job. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to talk to the members so that they can learn. That's what our organization is all about, is learning from each other and, getting to meet each other in a relaxed environment.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I was honored. I was like, what? You want me to talk to people?
I did, yes. And we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. And I do have like if you still had questions, I do have a Facebook and I have a page and you can and I have albums labeled KuneKune Butchering and they have lots more pictures with the tool. I should have shared pictures with the tools. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
I was going to ask you about equipment. Yeah, but I'll see if I can find stuff.
Yeah, didn't even think of that. I have photos of the laid out tools that I took pictures of. But yeah, I have albums and I think they're public albums. I don't know. I may have made them just friends because for a while there I was getting reported on all kinds of photos. But they're still there. Didn't take them down. Anyways, no pleasure talking to you. I wish you luck, every one of you. Good for you.
Thank you so very much.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate y'all attending. And don't know what happened to the others, but they missed out.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Kathy. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for showing up. I got to figure out how to log